What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what's happening with the economic calendar thus far, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I get the downloads information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon, just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's break down what's happening to the market. Looking at SPY, we got a very, very aggressive sell-off after some of the announcements that were made by the Fed, as we had Cash Kari from the Fed make a speech, and he mentioned that the Fed is open to the possibility of not cutting this year if we start to see more and more signs of inflation going up. And that's going to be very, very important. Now, with the market selling off as hard as it did, we got this nice little recovery bounce on Friday as we predicted. And the question is, what's going to happen from here? I'm going to give you guys some answers in my opinion. But let's first talk about some data. Let's talk about how the market is looking. As a very important reminder, for Monday, it's going to be April 8th, 2024. We have the Consumer Inflationary Expectations Report coming out. That is minor data, not really going to cause anything too crazy. And then we have the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions coming out later on at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And watch for some volatility during that 11 a.m. hour. We could see some interesting moves. Now, that's going to be the very, very beginning of the week. Going into Tuesday, we have minor data as well. But do not forget that for Wednesday, we have CPI coming out, and that could be very significant because the market is expecting an increase in CPI. Now, if it ends up increasing more than expected, that could be bearish for the markets. We want to be very careful, especially as we're starting to see energy going up and we're starting to see crude oil following that trend. Now, that's going to be very important moving forward. When it comes to other factors involving the markets, we have some earnings coming out. As of right now, they're all very, very minor. We have very minor earnings coming out on Tuesday, just like WD-40 and a couple others. But then by Friday, by the end of the week, things become very serious as we have JP Morgan Chase, we have Wells Fargo, we have BlackRock, Citi, and a bunch of other big ones coming out. Now, for the Fear and Greed Index, we're seeing some more changes as well. This was at extreme greed. Now we're just barely at greed. And we're seeing a little shift right over here. Market momentum is barely at greed as well. It's starting to shift a little, but nothing is too significant on those ends. But I am seeing two significant changes on two of the indicators. The puts and call positioning is now back to neutral, right? What happened was this was dropping a bit as we started to see some call buying as the market was dropping. Then we started to see more put buying on Friday as the market was getting bought back up. So we're starting to see big shifts right here in the markets. We're starting to see more shorts piling in. If this starts to break out more, this could be another signal that the shorts are going to double down and they're going to become a lot more serious. So we have to give this a little bit more time, see how this ends up changing. As this starts to go up, this tends to mark tops in the markets. So we'll have to wait and see. So be very, very careful for the time being. On top of all of this, when it comes to market volatility, the VIX has broken above its 50 daily moving average. We'll see if this holds or not. If the VIX ends up dropping very, very sharply, this could be because of the market pushing higher, and the opposite could happen as well. But as of right now, the VIX is still on a breakout, and that does suggest that the market could start downtrending even more. So now the question is, what's happening in the charts? What do I think is going to play out? Let's now break this down. So looking at SPY, I just want to say that when we zoom out like this, you could see that SPY is on a bit of a downtrend, meaning this thing in the past was holding up very, very nicely. This thing was all the way up at this 526 resistance. It came all the way down to about 516, pushed back up to about 524, came down again to 512. Now we're making another lower high. So the question is, will this trend continue? Are we about to see a downtrend from here? Are we about to see things shift greatly, or is there about to be something the opposite that's about to happen? So I'm going to break down more information about that. So from the way things are looking, right, you can see that SPY is sort of stuck right here. We had this high up here beginning to downtrend. Our resistance aligns with this 522 to 521 area. But a very common trend is every time SPY hits 524 or gets very close to 524 to 526, it rejects. That happened 1, 2, 3 times. That suggests that we have a very, very tight supply zone up there. We're seeing a lot of sellers defending that, and the bears are gaining some strength. So this suggests that for SPY, we're getting this little recovery run rate over here. The chart is still looking like a little bullish, at least for the super, super short term, meaning it could push a little bit more, but the bigger trend is still bearish. So SPY could try to push higher. There's still a possibility. We try to go up to about 520. If we do break through this imbalance could take us up to 522. If that breaks, as we get closer to 524, the resistance gets tougher. And there's a very high probability SPY will reject over there. For support, I'm going to be watching 517.5. If we lose that, watch 516.5. And if that breaks, we could go all the way back down to about 515, if not 512.5 again. What do I think SPY is going to do? Here's my answer, okay? I think that SPY might attempt to push a little higher again. We could see another retest of 520 or so, maybe go a little higher, but ultimately, I believe that this move is going to fail. I say that based off the technicals and based off other factors such as cyclicals and seasonality. I think that SPY may attempt to push a little higher, but at any time we're above 520 and below 524, there's a very, very good chance we're going to be entering our rejection zone. Our rejection zone is the area where SPY is rejected many, many times. I think there's a very, very good chance we're going to see that very soon. So I think, in my opinion, it could retest 520, maybe go a little higher than that, and it's eventually going to make its way back down over the next couple of days and start pushing back down towards these lower levels. I find that's to be the most likely possibility. But to be bullish, you want to see it break 524 and start squeezing. To be bearish, you want to see this thing lose 515, start losing these supports. My gut is telling me it's going to pop a little bit more, retest, grab more liquidity up here, and we're eventually going to make our way back down much lower to these lower levels down here. And we could eventually lose 512 over the next couple of trading days, if not a week or so. So look for a little rebound right here towards our key fib levels. I did call these out earlier in my weekend video. This imbalance could bring us all the way up to about 522, maybe around that range, 520 to 522. But I think we're going to form a top and SPY will eventually make its way back down. I find that prediction to be very, very probable. Now, what's interesting is the QQQ is on a very, very similar trend. The QQQ is doing something very interesting. When we zoom out of the QQQ, turn off all of these like lines, you could see you're on a downtrend. We had this high right here at 450. We came down, we retested about 448, came down, retested, came down, retested, came down, and we're slowly downtrending. You guys can see it's showing some weakness now. So what I see from here is something very similar to SPY. Let me just double check and kind of clarify these resistance levels. So we have support right now at our 20 EMA 440.19. If we lose 440, is next, followed by 436. We also have resistance at around 440.89. If we break through that, watch 442, the 200 EMA. If it breaks 442, watch for 444, very close to that area. Then we have 446.5 and higher levels up there. In my opinion, what I think is going to happen is the QQQ could retest the 200 EMA at 442 or so. To turn really bullish, you want to see it break past 448, by the way. And to be bearish, you want to see it lose 436. But I personally think what's going to happen is we retest resistance a little bit more, could even hold up, try to push towards our imbalance. We might get very close to 442 to 444 one more time. And then later on, there might be a little sell-off coming. Maybe it may take a couple of days, but eventually I see this coming down to these lower levels. So look for the liquidity sweep right here. Look for a lower high for the QQQ. I think eventually it's going to be making its way back down to these lower levels. I find that to be very, very probable. Now, for Tesla, the thing about Tesla is that it's not officially going to follow the markets because we have an external factor. Elon Musk made an announcement that Tesla is going to be announcing its robotaxi. There's also going to be a lot of news coming out for Tesla that affects it. But as of right now, it looks to me like Tesla is going to gap up. We might see Tesla kind of push a little bit more, could retest 172. If we break that, 175 is a real possibility, followed by 177. My gut tells me we could be pushing towards this 175 zone, 172 to 175 again, pushing a little bit higher. And I think that Tesla might start to shop around a little bit and eventually make its way back down. I say that because when you look at the chart, Tesla loves to get rejected very, very close to 178 to 180. And sometimes we have gotten some rejections off 175. So I predict we're going to push a little bit more on Tesla. We could get closer to 175, maybe a little higher. And then as we get closer to 177, around that area, Tesla's going to start shopping and we might be making our move back down. So you want to be very, very careful with the way Tesla's moving. Yes, it could attempt to push a little higher. Look for this push thanks to the Elon Musk news. But just like last time it pushed up, it came back down as there's a lot of bad news that came out. So it might pop a bit, just like the markets, and eventually make its way down later on over the next couple of days. For Nvda, I'm seeing something very similar. Now, unfortunately for Nvidia, we lost support at 892 and we're on a bit of a downtrend. But what is good about it is it's trying to rebound a bit. So it could try to make its way back up to this key level, try to make its way back up to 892. We could attempt to push a little more to 885 to 892. And then once we're in this liquidity zone, we'll have to see if we get a big rejection, make our way back down to 872, if not below that. So look for a little push first. Watch the 50 EMA as resistance, might push a little bit higher, and then watch resistance around 892. For support, watch 872. If we lose that, we're going to see 862. My gut tells me it's going to push a little bit, kind of grab liquidity up here, and eventually make our way back down. I find that to be very, very probable. On top of all of this, we also have the one and only Apple stock. Apple stock is in a very, very interesting position as well. Apple is attempting to push towards the support at 169, and we're seeing some weakness on the charts. The reason why there's weakness is because the way this thing is moving is it kind of pops and drops, pops and drops. It's done this many times. We'll look for a retest of 169.8 or so. It was very choppy on Friday. Might try to grab liquidity again and eventually make its way down lower to 169. And if we lose this, I can see it coming down to 168.25 all over again. So look for a little pop and it'll drop back down. I find that to be very, very probable. And that's what I think might end up playing out. So watch that very carefully. It's a very, very good chance it's going to pop and drop. So you want to be very, very open-minded nonetheless. For Palantir, I'm seeing something very similar to Nvidia. We could see this thing kind of like pop a little bit. You guys could see how it's on a bit of a downtrend. Might try to retest its 200 EMA, could retest 23.5 or so, maybe below that, and eventually make its way down to 21.88. I do find that to be very probable, as this is overall on a bit of a downtrend. If you look at the 4-hour time frame, this is showing a weakness as well. Uh, it could pop a little bit before it tries to make its way back down lower, so just be very careful as there's this gap to fill. So look for a pop again to resistance. Could retest the resistance up above before it makes its way back down. 21.8 could be retested as well. For we also have Supermicro on a bit of a downtrend. Supermicro is on a bit of a downtrend because overall it's shifting its direction. I could be looking for a retest of just under its support right over here at um, we have 950 as our resistance, and we also have 980 above that. It could go a little higher from there, then start sinking lower ultimately. So I still see a bit of a downtrend coming, and we could be making our way back down towards 905. So look for a little pop first before it continues lower. That is very, very probable in my opinion. For Rivian, this chart is still bearish because if you guys look carefully, it's just barely at the support. Could drop a little bit more. It might rebound a bit. Once it hits 10, we could see some buyers defend it a bit. But then if it loses that, it's going to end up dropping later. So I do see a little kind of like reaction move off that 10 area coming. Could retest like 10.5 or so. May try to like rebound a little and then make its way back down even lower. I find that to be very probable. So look and see how it reacts to 10. Might open around 10 on Monday, pop a little bit, and then make its way back down lower. So just be very, very careful. For SoFi right now is not looking that great. We popped and dropped many, many times, and we're just kind of stuck in this range. So I think that the big earnings that come out could affect this. Now, one could argue we have a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure that is developing, but there's no sign of this breaking past 7.8 yet. It may be heavily impacted by the bank earnings. And overall, I wouldn't solely trade based off that until we break our 200 EMA. So if we break the 200 EMA, I see this thing bouncing a little bit uh, above 7.8. If we end up losing 7.25, we're going to be sinking all the way down to 7, if not 6.8 again. Otherwise, we're still kind of range bound, kind of stuck in the middle. For the last couple of weeks, it's been trading sideways, but we'll see if the bank earnings end up affecting this to some extent. So you want to be very, very careful. My guts tells me that overall, SoFi could attempt to form an inverse head and shoulders like structure. It's going to likely be stuck between 7.5 and 7.2 for some time, but we'll have to see which way it breaks. It's still kind of stuck between supply and demand. For AMD, we're seeing some weakness on the chart. It was trying to rebound a bit. Watch resistance at 175 and watch support currently around 165. If we lose this, a bigger drop is coming. We look a little bit more bearish after this big break. It could push a little bit higher, retest 175, then reject to make its way back down lower. I find that's to be very, very probable. For ARM, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We're at resistance right now at our 125 area. If we break that, watch 127.5. If we fail to do so, we're going to be sinking back down towards our 200 EMA. My gut tells me that it's slowly downtrending towards 120, if not 117. So I think that there's a very good chance it's going to reject here, maybe pop a little bit, then reject and drop even lower. For Coinbase, I'm seeing a bit of a downtrend on this. We have a head and shoulders like structure, and now we're riding this line down here. Might pop a bit, retest 240, right over here, 245. If not, the resistance at 251. This range right here might get retested. Then we could come back down even lower. The chart is still looking bearish overall. For Amazon, we're on a nice uptrend on Amazon. Amazon's showing some strength. Going to be looking for a test of 185. If it breaks through this, we could be going higher. Might fall a little bit right over here, retest 184, then start pushing higher for 187. Looks bullish overall to me. For Meta, we're also looking kind of bullish. We came down a little bit, could retest 523.5 again, and then start pushing higher for 530 plus. The chart is still looking bullish. No sign of a rejection yet. For Microsoft, we're just trading sideways. Look at this resistance at 426. Look at this support down here at 422. My gut tells me it's been kind of range bound. So it could push a little bit towards 428, then make its way back down towards 422. So I find that to be very, very probable. For Google, Google, in my opinion, is on a bit of a downtrend. It's not really doing a great job at holding up. We have to watch this 153.85 area. If we lose this, we're going to be sinking down towards 152. So I do see an attempt for this to drop a little bit lower towards this imbalance, and I find that to be a real possibility. Could pop a bit, then start dropping, or even drop from here. So I'm going to be looking for this move down towards 151.6. Don't forget that there's also an interesting pattern here. I was looking at this earlier. Right here, there's a big gap to fill on Google on the daily chart. So you want to be very, very careful. Could come down a bit towards 151 by tomorrow. On the VIX, I'm going to be watching to see, does the VIX end up getting a breakout? Does the VIX start pushing higher towards 17? Or does the VIX end up falling all the way back down to fill its gap? As of right now, the VIX is on a bit of a breakout, so it could actually push higher. You want to be careful. If the VIX keeps going, this could be another sign of weakness for the market, so you want to be very, very careful. For the dollar index, we're going to be watching this as well. Does the dollar bounce and break past the 50 EMA at 104.35 and start pushing higher? Or do we end up losing 103.9 and start sinking lower? Overall, it's bouncing off the 200 EMA. It could push a little bit higher, so it's holding up very, very well. We'll see if the dollar breaks out more or not. If it does break out more, this could be a bearish signal for the markets. So I'll be watching for this as well. With that being said, SPY does have potential to push a little bit more. The market could push a bit more, but be careful because we could establish a lower high, and we could end up coming back down lower. So you want to be watching your levels carefully and see how things go. With that being said, I want to thank you all for listening. I really appreciate every single one of you. Please enjoy the rest of the weekend. Enjoy your Sunday. If you're watching any big events or having any fun, take care, guys. Do what you have to do. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you for listening, and peace out.